Hello, welcome to part 2 of the secrets I was forced to keep out of fear and shame. In this episode, I talk about how I survived and learnt to thrive and move forward in my life after abuse, loss, and disordered eating. If you haven't come here out of choice, of not wanting to listen to part 1, make sure you go back and listen to part 1 before listening to part 2. I split some of these episodes into 2 parts, so if you feel you might be triggered or you just don't want to hear the bad stuff, you can just listen in to part 2 and hear the positive ways in which myself and my guests overcome trauma, abuse, and sadness, and how we can help you if you are going through any of the secrets we talk about on this podcast. Welcome to the Secrets in the Powder Room, where we share stories and open up conversations about all the secrets women are forced to keep out of fear and shame. I'm Louise Bryant, professional certified coach, intuitive eating counsellor, and domestic abuse coach and course facilitator. We're here to support you on your healing journey and help you feel like you're not alone. This is not a replacement of your own professional, medical, and/or legal advice. This podcast contains adult language and content. Listener discretion is advised. I want to start by saying again that I've had a really good life and a fantastic childhood and amazing people in my life. My parents were amazing. They were together up until I was an adult. So my grandparents were amazing. My 2 brothers were amazing. And, we had lots of great times. So when I started gymnastics, I was 3. And when I finished it, I was 13. And it went up to I was training on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. And then I did swimming on a Wednesday. And I think this gave me a really good start in life to being able to keep fit and be really into, fitness. I can sort of take up exercise and stuff quite easily. So having that foundation, because, we all know how important exercise is for the mind and the body. So also when I gave up gymnastics, I started doing trampolining. And then I was coaching the little ones and I coached some gymnastics for a while. So that was definitely the foundation of my healthy lifestyle. In primary school, I wanted to be a firefighter until I found out that if you're claustrophobic, you couldn't be a firefighter. So I changed my mind and decided to become a hairdresser. And in year 7, as we called it then, the first year of secondary school, we had to write down what we wanted to be when we grow up or where we wanted to, not necessarily just career, but, what we wanted to have, what we wanted to achieve. And I remember writing that I wanted to be a hairdresser, I wanted to drive a car and have my own place. And by the time I was 18, I had all of that. And I think that really helped me to learn from such an early age that you can achieve anything that you put your mind to. So when I was 8 and my nan had the severe stroke, it was a real shock. I remember walking into the hospital and I think I nearly passed out, or I may have passed out. But after my granddad died when I was 12 and I became a carer for her, I think it gave me a real purpose. And as my dad was an only child, so there was no other, and I was an only girl in our family, then I kind of felt it was my responsibility to help look after her. Although she had carers coming in, I would help the carers, and I was actually, one of her carers as well. And it also made me grow up very quickly, maybe a bit too quickly, but, I think by the age of about 14, I thought I was a proper adult. Hence why I left school at 15 to become a hairdresser. So when I had the accident on the trampoline and sprained my neck and my back, I think it was that point when I stopped exercising for a while. So I think throughout my life I've always exercised, apart from when I was 15, when I had the accident, up until when I was 24 and I had my eldest son. The job that I had, the salon that I worked in was called the Glass Spider, and it was such a fun and happy place to work. I've got such fond memories of that place. And although it was when I had my eating issues going on, my eating disorder, and that fight happened and I moved up north, I had such a good relationship with my boss at the time that, when I said I wanted to come back, she said, your job's open for you. And she's still my best friend, one of my best friends to this day. She introduced my husband and I. She was my maid of honour at my wedding. So I had such fond memories, and I think having that as my first job set the bar really high. And I think since then I've kind of had a few other jobs, but mostly I've worked for myself, and I think that's why, because setting the bar that high of such a fantastic first job. So skipping over all the rubbish part that I had mentioned in the first part of this episode. So from the age of 19 to 24, when all that stuff was happening, the ways I got over a lot of that stuff, for one, I got a dog, my dog Tequila. She helped me to feel safe and protected, and I knew she would bark if anyone tried to enter my house again while I was sleeping. So at that point as well, I was in amongst that time. At some point, I was taking antidepressants for a while and had some counselling. But what finally helped me get over was getting over all of that stuff, was having my son, having to have someone else to care for, and I had to look after myself better so that I could be there for him. And also after having my son, I moved from the rough estate that I lived in into a lovely flat close to my parents and my son's family. And I started working in another hair salon, and I made some lovely new friends, and I also went on Weight Watchers, and I lost the baby weight, and I started going to the gym and also exercising at home, and I really got back into my fitness. So bearing in mind, during this time, after having my son, or before having my son, obviously, I was in an abusive relationship. When I got back into exercise after having him, that was really a helpful escape away from what was going on at home. And also when my dad died, I had even more of a reason to look after myself, because I obviously didn't want to die young of a heart attack. And I still don't want to die young of a heart attack. So I always loved dancing. I used to go out clubbing a lot and dancing in clubs and dancing in bars and stuff. So I always enjoyed dancing and going out. But because I wasn't able to do this anymore, I wasn't allowed to do this anymore, my clubbing days were completely over. So I decided to train as a Zumba instructor. And this way I could dance and I could keep fit and earn money and I could have some fun with women. So I also took up running, and I ran a half marathon. And this was called Run to the Beat. And this was in Greenwich in southeast London. And you had bands playing music as you went round and DJs. And unfortunately they don't do it anymore, but it was a really fun half marathon to do. And I was doing lots of exercise at this time, and really it was really helping my mind stay sane while all the craziness with the relationships I was in. And I even went and done a bit of adult gymnastics, which was fun. But, I think sometimes, I think I realised at that point that I couldn't quite fly as much as I could when I was a lot lighter, I think. But yeah, it was still fun for a while. I then got into reading self-help books. The first one was Families and How to Survive Them and Destructive Emotions by the Dalai Lama. And then I read Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I think I took that a little bit of the wrong way, because at the time my relationship was very on-off. I ended up taking my abusive partner back, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So it wasn't quite what the book was about. It was more about putting yourself out there, a bit like what I'm doing now with this podcast, is feeling the fear and do it anyway. But as I say, I've read this book again recently, and obviously I got something completely different from it than I did then. I then read Rhonda Byrne's The Secret, and I met my husband, and I manifested that shit, baby. After we got together, I had 6 months of intense therapy, and I really felt like there was stuff that I had to put to bed. I had to kind of put all that stuff from the past that's happened to bed so that I didn't bring it into my new relationship. Having a healthy relationship was very new to me, but even though I'd had abusive relationships and always kind of met the wrong person and kept falling into these habits, I had hope, and I always knew that one day I'd meet someone decent. I wasn't actually looking for a relationship when I met my husband, but when my friend found out I was single, she said, I know the perfect person for you. And as it turns out, we have, I wouldn't say we're perfect, but we're pretty close. After my husband and I had our first child, my daughter, there were some issues going on with my son, so I had some counselling over that and also some coaching, and that was really helpful. That was my first experience of any coaching. I was 34 years old, and then at the age of 36 we had our second baby, and that was obviously a wonderful part of my life. And after I had the accident and chopped my thumb, I again had some counselling and some coaching, and I got depressed then, obviously having to give up my career, and I went on some antidepressants. And I think it was, so what I used to do was I used to always listen to the audio of The Secret, if ever I was feeling a bit funky or a bit low, I would call The Secret my Prozac. So I'd play the CDs, that's how long ago it was, I'd play the CDs in my car and it would automatically start making me feel better. But I tried that. I actually tried listening to The Power and I just wanted to tell Rhonda Byrne to F off. Because, I was in such a funk. I just couldn't listen to all the positive love and stuff like that. So I knew that at this point that I was depressed. I'd just cry all the time. So going to the doctors and taking that step and saying, look, I think I'm depressed and I want to go on antidepressants. I'm not sure whether it was actually a placebo, but as soon as I admitted that it was depression, I felt like I took back control of my life and I was able to focus on the counselling, the coaching, the self-help books or the self-help audios. And then I got into meditation and started working, like really working back on myself. And it was through the coaching that I was obviously I was doing some career coaching and trying to work out what I was going to do with myself. And it was my coach at the time said, because I was her hairdresser, she said to me, you should become a coach. She said, if anyone can get me running, then they've definitely got something in them that motivates people and gets them to do stuff. Because obviously when I was doing her hair, I had got her to start running. So I thought this would be a great idea and did some research. And then I became a coach and it was the best decision. So seeing that accident that's happened to me, although I still suffer now, I still have limited use to my hand. If I didn't have this accident, I would still be hairdressing and I wouldn't be helping all the people that I'm helping now, all the women that I'm helping through domestic abuse and all the people I'm helping with their eating and body image issues. And I just see it as a gift. And losing the friendships that I had after being told that I changed was really hard at the time. But sometimes in life, people who are quite negative towards you and your choices aren't the ones that you want to have by your side. So even though for some of them it wasn't my decision, in probably both of our worlds, it was for the best. And I would encourage anyone who has got people in their lives who aren't serving them anymore. They say that we become the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And if you're spending time with people that aren't, and you have a choice to walk away or just limit the amount of time you spend to them or the amount of time you talk to them, then I would really encourage you to do that. And because I was using alcohol quite a lot with my pain for my hand, I decided that I was going to give up alcohol. So when I was 39, I gave up drinking. And then we went into lockdown, which, like I mentioned in the first episode, I'm so glad that through lockdown I didn't drink alcohol because I know my habits. I know what I do. I know, obviously I did it with my hands and I did it through all the other traumas. I would use alcohol to help me through that pain. So not having alcohol was definitely a good thing for me because, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it? So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. So after the initial shock of going into lockdown, as everyone else was feeling the same, was all in the same boat and feeling scared and trying to make sure the children didn't feel scared and getting used to the idea, checking in with family. Because we couldn't go out, I went in and I went inside myself and really focused on my own spirituality and mental well-being. I also focused on my learning, personal growth and health. I did my ACC accreditation in lockdown and I became an intuitive eating counsellor and my life course facilitator working in domestic abuse. I did lots of meditating and CBT training. I started getting up at 5 o'clock every morning and I did like 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of prayer, meditation and journaling and 20 minutes of learning. And this really benefited me in lockdown because it was the only time I got to myself. My husband was a firefighter, so he was still working full-time while we were going through lockdown. So I was on my own quite a lot with the children. When some of the lockdown restrictions eased, my mum and my son and I had some functional family therapy, which was really, really helpful for what we were going through at the time. exercise and keeping healthy and eating healthy, having, a healthy mind, a healthy body has really, or did really help me through the lockdown period. And it's something that, I continue to this day. As I mentioned, I moved to the seaside and I moved into an Airbnb for a period of time, and my PTSD came back from one of the earlier incidents that happened to me, and I had some rewind technique for that, and then I also did some training, and I am now qualified to perform the rewind technique, and I do this with some of my clients. I also, while living in the Airbnb, got my ACC accreditation and couples coaching, done some mental health training and domestic abuse level 3 training. And then when I moved into my house, I done my NLP practitioner training. I have ongoing hand issues, and I will be having more surgery this year. So hopefully, finally, my surgeon can put my hand right so that I'll maybe be able to, have more use out of it. So in regards to how I can help anyone else who's been through this stuff, obviously I'm a life coach and NLP practitioner. I run a domestic abuse course, and I also run an intuitive eating course. And if you feel like there's anything that you could benefit from working with me, then feel free to go to my website, connect with me on Instagram, and just make that connection, and I would be happy to help you. Or you can get some of my free resources on my website, my free meditations for grounding yourself if you feel triggered by anything that I talk about. And I would also encourage you to talk about your issues. If you don't feel safe to talk about it to anybody, or a therapist or a coach or a friend, then I would encourage you to start journaling if it's safe for you to do so. If it's not safe, you could maybe write it out on a piece of paper and safely burn it or throw it or rip it, but getting these feelings or these emotions or these stories out of your body can be really, really beneficial. So I would encourage you to do this. Meditation and journal changed my life. Like, I meditate and journal pretty much every day because I feel like it gets everything out of my head, everything out of my mind, anything that's taken up that's a mess in my head. Practicing my gratitude daily, practicing meditation daily, and exercising is definitely something that I would recommend to everybody. Self-care is and should be for everybody non-negotiable. The analogy of if you don't put your oxygen mask on first and you can't breathe, you can't take care of your family, you can't save your kids if you can't breathe. Same with your life jacket. Get your life jacket on, save yourself. If you can't save your children or your family or your parents or your job, your career, if you're drowning. So self-care should be an absolute non-negotiable, and that's something that I focus on with my clients and the ladies that I work with on the workshops. It's almost like it's normally the foundation of my coaching is to making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And I'm going to do a podcast about the self-care box that I get all of my ladies to create, and I hope you can go and listen to that after this one. I also want to add that without the emotional, financial, and not to mention the love and understanding I have from my husband, my whole new life and my career would not be possible. Very recently, actually only 2 weeks ago, we got some bunny rabbits, and these babies are bringing so much joy into my life. I'm actually struggling to get any work done because I keep going in and picking them up and cuddling them and stroking them and playing with them. But seriously, they are helping me to ground myself. If I've got any negative self-talk or any self-doubt, or the judge is, playing a big part in my head, just going and taking a time out and being mindful with the rabbits and stroking them and feeling their fur and talking to them, and it takes you away. So if you have any pets, or if you have anything that's available to you, going out for a walk to just kind of take away your thoughts from any negativity, doing some meditation or listening to some music or doing some dancing, just making sure that you're really taking care of yourself and making self-care a non-negotiable. So if you've sat and listened to my podcast this far, then I thank you so much, and I look forward to creating more podcasts for you that will hopefully be inspiring, helpful, and all my guests come in and sharing all of their secrets in the powder room. It's funny, I always used to get in trouble for talking too much at school, and I used to say to my mum, I want to be a hairdresser, so, we have to talk. But now I didn't realise that, it would also benefit me this point in my life for being a podcaster, and I maybe do talk too much, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you for joining me, Louise Bryant, in this episode of The Secrets in the Powder Room. Make sure you subscribe or join the podcast mailing list so you don't miss an episode.